Okay, for those of you that are doing high level maths, I want to talk about what the imaginary number is and just try and get your heads around it a bit. And you may have already seen that the imaginary number is represented by the letter I, and it equals the square root of -1. And you may be thinking to yourself that the imaginary number is actually, how do I imagine numbers? Well, before I talk more about I want to think about you already knowing imaginary numbers, such as 0. 0 is an imaginary number. An imaginary number is something that you can't actually hold or see. 0 is a concept that you have to imagine. I'll give you another example of an imaginary number, pi. It's actually a number that you can't physically hold and you can't see, √2. These are all imaginary numbers, as opposed to real numbers, or rather numbers such as 1, 2, and 3, which you can actually physically hold. Sorry, I shouldn't say real numbers. These are all real numbers as well. And this number, half, you can physically hold a half. So you've already dealt with the idea that you're using imaginary numbers. But the imaginary number is I, which is the square root of -1. Now, just to go through a few things, if you square I, you're doing -1, square root of -1 times the square root of -1. So when you square I, you get -1. When you cube I, you're multiplying this one with this one, which is going to give you minus the square root of -1, or minus I. And when you put I to the power of 4, you're going to have I squared, which is -1 times -1, which is 1. And then this process starts all over again, because I to the power of 5 is I times I to the power of 4. So you're going to get this one times this one. So you can see that there's going to be a repeat process. So let's just go on and play around a little bit with the power of I, very, very briefly. So if I know that I is the square root of -1, it now opens up solutions to things such as the square root of -9. The square root of -9 is -1, or the square root of -1 times the square root of -9. So this becomes, this letter here is I, and this is 3. So we can now have 3i. So we can do that with all sorts of concepts. So we could have the square root of -12. Okay, the square root of -12. So that's going to be, let's take I out, and I'm left with the square root of 12. And 12 can be written as 4 times 3, or 2i root 3. And I should maybe quantify, we've got a plus and a minus one there. So this should be plus and minus, and this should also be plus and minus. So that should introduce you to the idea of the imaginary number, the square root of -I.